The delivery service had just dropped off the furniture Diana had ordered. She was putting her bed together when the call came that her motorcycle was ready to be unloaded. Diana ran downstairs. She waited eagerly for them to get it out of the truck. She looked at it closely to make sure there wasn't any damage from the transport. She couldn't see any. When the paperwork was completed, she pushed it into her garage. She needed to get her bed put together, her computer put on her desk, and everything hooked up. Then she promised herself she'd do whatever it took to get her Sportster ready to ride. Diana was thankful for the time she'd spent with Slade when it came to being self-sufficient. He had taught her how to use a screwdriver. He also made her maintain her own motorcycle. If she was going to own it, she'd jolly well take care of it. Thankfully, across the freeway, not far from the U-Haul, there was a Harley Davidson dealership. She'd go get the parts she needed after lunch. She would open her garage door, put on some music, and give her motorcycle a good tune-up. Then, she decided as she tugged the mattress onto her bed platform, she'd take it for a ride. Diana was tempted to throw the sheets on and fix it later. A picture of her mom's disapproving face entered her mind. She sighed. Fine, she muttered under her breath. She'd fix it neatly. She paused as the memory of her mother surfaced. Her parents disowned her after she left to move to Arizona to go to college. They didn't see the need for her to get a degree. She could very well stay at home and waitress. She made good tips, had friends and family. They just didn't see the need, but Diana knew she had to escape. Otherwise, she'd marry some guy who hated motorcycles and wanted her to stay barefoot and pregnant. No thanks. Kids weren't in her future. She could not picture herself as a mother. The 2 weeks she lived with Slade, that ended in disaster, had proved the point she was better off alone. The desk was harder to put together. She had to go to the rental office to see if she could borrow some tools. They graciously let her. She placed the desk in the living room where she could gaze out of the patio doors and dream of being on the freeway instead of stuck behind her computer. Speaking of her computer, that was the next thing to set up. One of the 2 roller bags she had brought with her was full of monitors, a keyboard, mouse, and the CPU unit wrapped in 2 blankets. She also had a laptop, but it was getting old. One of these days, she'd try and boot it up to find it had gone to computer heaven. She found her power strip. She plugged it in. She unzipped the bag she'd put her cords in. With her mind on her motorcycle, she made fast work putting her office together. Diana knew she needed to eat something. She decided since Del Taco was fast and right on the way, she'd stop there. The food she had there yesterday had been good. Her computer booted up. She got it connected to the internet. Everything seemed to have made the trip just fine, thank goodness. When she saw the number of emails that needed her attention, she scratched getting lunch at Del Taco. She made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Lunch would be a working lunch. She figured she might as well get those caught up before she went to Harley Davidson. It was 2 in the afternoon before she pulled open the door to the motorcycle store. She took a moment to study the layout. She spotted the area where shelves of parts were located. She grabbed a basket. She couldn't buy more than what she could carry, she reminded herself. Distracted by the list of supplies she needed, she didn't pay attention to the other people in the store. She was checking out spark plugs when Cole's voice, full of shock, made her raise her head. Diana? He stood there with disbelief written all over his face. What are you doing here? He asked. She put the package she held into the basket. Diana looked around. He seemed to be alone. The other day I got a really bad headache, she explained. To tell you the truth, that's about the last thing I remember before waking up here. Concern filled his face. Are you okay? As far as I know, she smiled. How are you? Not good, he said. Got time to talk? Sure. Let me finish shopping. I'm on foot till I get my motorcycle running. I'm driving a Suburban. I can give you a ride. Cole replied. That is fabulous. I'll hurry. No need. I have time. He glanced at his watch. I just have to be back to the movie set by 6 to pick up Jessie, Elaine, and the meatheads. Diana frowned. Meatheads? Her two security guys, he explained. Big, muscled guys, Hollywood style. She grinned. He went to pay for the few items he had picked up. He then went outside to wait for her. He pushed himself away from the black Suburban he leaned against when she stepped onto the sidewalk. He opened the front passenger door for her. Thanks, she said. He nodded. He made sure she got in with all her purchases. He shut the door for her, then walked around the front to the driver's side. He got in, belted up, then turned. Does Slade know you're here? He hasn't contacted me. He might not know. You need to make contact, Cole advised. Why? We'll talk once we're at your place. He fell silent as he stopped at a red light. That made Diana nervous. They got to Bella Rosa. She pointed to a place he could park. They took the purchases to her garage. He started to open packages for her as she laid out the new tools she had bought. Thanks to the ride Cole offered her from the store, she was able to buy a few more things. She also splurged on a vest she had eyed as she waited in line to pay. Cole started to speak. He told her the real reason he had agreed to do the movie. The stupid move Hank made to do what they thought might be million-dollar deals with crooked government officials. To make matters worse, Slade and Cole could not tell what Diego's knowledge or involvement was, if any. The gang was meeting at the bar east of New River after a trip to Wickenburg the next day. He thought she should probably make her presence known to Slade. They were going to meet that evening, but Slade called it off. He was looking into something and couldn't make it. Cole had no idea what that something was, but knowing Slade the way he did, something was cooking. They heard someone moving around outside the garage, so they changed the topic of their discussion. Cole left at 4:30. Diana finished the motorcycle tune-up, then took it on a ride. The next evening, after a long day of work, Diana put on a clean pair of jeans. She slid a slim turtleneck over her head. The turquoise color would do amazing things for her green eyes. Her earrings were diamond studs. She applied a little foundation and powder, but that was it for makeup. It was right at 7 when she pulled onto the gravel lot. She parked at the end of a long line of motorcycles. She took a minute to study the old building she used to spend most of her weekend evenings at. It looked exactly the same. The building was square with a small lean-to on the front. She stepped inside to see nothing had changed in the 20 years she had been in New York. The only thing in there was the same cigarette machine with half of the selections empty. With a deep breath, she entered the bar area. The room was dark aside from the lights above the bar to the right. In the middle were 2 rows of 4 tables with 4 chairs to a table. To the left were the same 2 large circular booths that easily sat 6. At the opposite end of the room from where she stood, light spilled from the doorway that opened into a bigger room with pool tables, dartboards, and a few pinball machines. The tables in there were the pub height tables with a few chairs. That's where Slade would be. Her heart started to pound. She heard Elaine call to her in a shocked voice, so she returned the greeting with a wave. Diana's feet moved across the floor on their own wheel while her brain screamed at her to turn and run. She stopped in the doorway. A few guys glanced at her. She found Slade at the furthest table along the left wall. He sat there with a beer on the table, a brand she didn't recognize. He was busy reading something on his phone. Cole told him to look. Slade raised his head. For the first time in 20 years, their eyes met. Slade put his phone down and stood up as the tension in the room thickened to an uncomfortable level. Mrs. Mitchell, he stood up, welcome home. He smiled as she walked to him. Wordlessly, she put her arms around him and hugged him long and hard. Neither of them spoke as they pulled apart far enough to kiss each other. The tension in the room melted away. Men went back to their games and conversation. A waitress brought a fresh round of drinks to 4 guys who were starting a game of pool. "Were you tracking me?" Diana asked. "Yes." Slade answered truthfully. "I knew you were back." "Are you mad?" She looked as worried as she sounded. "No." He smiled a reassuring smile at her. "Had you not come back when you did, babe, I would have gone up and got you. Things are about to hit the fan," he continued as his voice got hard. "I need you where I can protect you. I'll explain everything later. For now, there's a lot of people who want to say hello."